Not since Rosemary's Baby has there been anything like the devil within her. The story of a child created in hell to create hell on earth.
You will have a baby, a monster, possessed by the devil himself.
The Devil Within Her, starring Joan Collins as a woman cursed to carry the son of Satan.
I'm your mother, you can't hurt me. Please go away.
Donald Pleasence as the doctor, destined to be destroyed by the devil within her.
It's a question of my medicine versus your magic.
A film that exposes you to the awesome powers of possession, exorcism, and satanic revenge. Pray for the devil within her before it preys on you. The Devil Within Her.
We're not talking about actors. We mean a real monster.
I brought her back. She'll live and I'll get her another body.
They're going to kiss me, but don't let anyone see me like that. Please, doctor, help me.
Biologically speaking, it's of primary importance that man should want to mate. Hey, that hurts!
You don't get all your kicks from surfing, do you?
We want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
You think you're going to make a slave of the world? I'll see you in hell first!
The American International Podcast.
Are you ready?
Hello and welcome to the American International Podcast. I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And I'm Jeff Markin.
And today we've got one mother of a movie, The Devil Within Her from 1975.
The Devil Within Her was directed by Peter Sasdy, written by Stanley Price, produced by Nato for the Rank Organization.
The Devil Within Her stars Joan Collins as Lucy Carlesi, Ralph Bates as Gino Carlesi, Eileen Atkins as Sister Albana, Donald Pleasence as Dr. Finch, Hilary Mason as Mrs. Hyde, Carolyn Munro as Mandy Gregory, John Steiner as Tommy Morris.
Also appearing are George Claydon as Hercules, Janet Key as Jill Fletcher, Derek Benfield as Police Inspector, Stanley Lebor as Police Sergeant, Judy Buxton as Sheila, Andrew Secombe as Delivery Boy, Floella Benjamin as Delivery Room Nurse, and Liz Fraser as the uncredited voice of Mandy Gregory.
The Devil Within Her opens with a scream and a camera, both coming out of the mouth of Joan Collins, who plays Lucy.
Yeah, Lucy is screaming because she's in labor and things are not going well.
It's a little hard to tell what is really going on with Lucy. She's writhing in semi-orgasmic fashion here, but she really is having a baby. And as the doctor delivering the baby says, this kid does not want to be born.
And as true as that may be, it's not really much of a concern for the doctor and the nurse in the room. This seems to be standard operating room procedure.
They give Lucy some gas, they give her a shot, and eventually the doctor hauls out the forceps and deploys those in the birth of the baby.
And this is all going on while the credits are running. And there's shots of the light above Lucy's head, and we zoom in and out, and I'm not sure why, but
very disco.
We do it a few times.
It's quite the disco effect.
So eventually this baby is pried out and it starts to scream.
The screams are actually pretty disturbing. Even the doctor and nurse look alarmed at this.
Yeah, this baby sounds a lot like my youngest daughter did when she was infant. It was not pleasant.
It also sounds a lot like my cat when I stepped on her foot. Outside the operating room, Mr. Carlesi, Gino, is waiting for news. The doctor, Donald Pleasence, playing Dr. Finch, tells Gino that it's a boy and that mother and baby are okay, but the birth was a bit of a struggle. This baby is a whopper, nearly 12 pounds.
And they're British, so that's an interesting use of the pounds because that would be probably around 4 kilos.
Or $8. The nurse takes the new father off to see his boy, and after that, he and the doctor and the nurse all go to see Lucy.
Lucy's lying in bed and her back is turned away from the door and she seems to be crying.
She's sobbing.
She turns around and we see there's a big gash on her face.
There's like 3 gashes. She says, "I was just cuddling him." Everyone looks at the baby, who's an adorable little tyke there, but he's got a bit of fake blood on his mouth and on his fingertips. But he looks really innocent and sweet.
Yeah, he's got a "what did I do" look on his face. So now Dr. Finch is meeting with Gino, and Gino asks why the baby may have attacked Lucy. And Dr. Finch says that perhaps she was cuddling him too tightly, and even at that age, babies have a strong survival instinct.
Yep, if he was unable to breathe, he's going to fight back.
And this is one amazingly big and strong baby.
They keep saying that.
They keep saying that, but there isn't any evidence
to back that up.
There isn't any physical evidence to back that up.
No, he never stops and lifts a barbell or anything like that.
So they're going to discuss the feeding situation. Lucy had wanted to feed the baby herself. She was quite insistent on it. But the doctor doesn't think it's a good idea.
No, she must not do that because of the incident that just happened. It was very frightening to her. Not really sure why that's a good reason to not breastfeed your baby. My kids scratched and bit me all the time and didn't stop me.
The doctor says it's better just to wait a day or two and see how things go, because it'll be much easier to figure this out later.
After your milk dries up, yep. But actually, in this case, he does prove to be correct, so I'm not going to give him too hard of a time. Dr. Finch asks about the baby's name. Gino tells the doctor that he wanted an Italian name, and Lucy wanted an English name, so the baby's called Nicholas. The mother always wins, says Dr. Finch.
And now we cut outside to a parade for some reason.
It's not really germane to the plot in any way.
I don't know what this parade is for, but there's cars going by. And
it's pretty amateur looking, too. It might have actually just been happening, and they decided to add it in for some local color. We are in London, by the way. On a quieter street, we see Gino driving Lucy and Nicholas home. Of course, there's no car seat. Lucy's holding the baby on her lap. They're greeted at the house by Mrs. Hyde, who's their housekeeper.
She's kind of a housekeeper. Now she's going to be a /nanny.
And I'm sure initially she was okay with that. Once inside the house, she takes the baby and goes to put Nicholas in his crib.
As she lays him down, he bites her so hard.
We don't see this, of course. We're not going to see much of anything that he does.
No, the baby likes to
perform all his miracles off camera, basically.
Yeah.
Mrs. Hyde swears that he's got teeth already. And Lucy apologizes, but Mrs. Hyde shrugs it off. She figures he's just hungry.
So she says, you better feed him. And Lucy says that she'll get a bottle. And Mrs. Hyde is surprised that Lucy isn't going to be doing this herself.
By which she means breastfeeding. Gino tells Mrs. Hyde that the doctor said they shouldn't do that. So Mrs. Hyde offers to be the one to get the bottle and feed the baby. So Lucy and Gino, who just brought their brand new baby home, look over the crib and Lucy says, good first effort.
Then they leave.
Yeah, they leave him alone without a second thought.
So later, Gino and Lucy are discussing the infant's incredible size.
Yeah, they want to figure out which one of their families has the genes that made their baby so very enormous.
The phone rings. It's Gino's sister. Lucy tells him to tell her to come on over, and he gives directions in Italian and then repeats them in English for our benefit.
Thank you very much.
In case we wanted to go see the baby too, I guess.
We've already seen him.
He's huge.
He tells his sister to take a taxi to his office, and he'll drive her home. They can visit with the baby then.
So Gina goes to his office, and this is one of the moments when he forgets he's supposed to be Italian when he talks to his secretary, Sheila. But then his sister, Albana, arrives. His sister is a sister.
His sister, the sister, comes in, and they start jabbering at each other in Italian and giving each other what we will, in a politically incorrect way, call Eskimo kisses. Very strange. His secretary, Sheila, is just as confused as we are at what's going on here. However, after the Italian exchange, Sister Albana says, no, we are only going to speak English on this trip. So we don't have to worry about that anymore.
Which is good for Gino, because sometimes he seems to forget he's Italian.
Because he's not. But then again, neither is Sister Albana, and she does make a very strong effort to keep her Italian accent on track throughout the whole movie.
So now back at the house, Lucy's friend Mandy Gregory is coming by to meet Nicholas.
Mandy comes in, tells Lucy that it looks like she's been on vacation, but Lucy says grimly that that was no holiday. Mrs. Hyde, who's been waiting to leave all this time, finally takes off. Mandy is anxious to go see the baby, but Lucy says no, he's sleeping. So instead they have a drink.
As Lucy prepares the drinks, they chat about work. It seems Lucy used to work at the same strip club as Mandy, and Mandy says that Tommy still has as many hands as ever.
And as we'll find out, Lucy has rather intimate knowledge of how handsy Tommy is. Mandy gives a toast to the new baby. She says Lucy is the lucky one, that Mandy will have to settle for whatever husband she can get if she doesn't want to bump and grind herself to death.
Just then, Nicholas screams, and a look of dread falls over Lucy.
She actually cringes. Also, we hear some kind of commotion coming from upstairs, so the two of them run up there.
They go to the room and find that the room has been kind of ransacked. The baby couldn't have done this, could he?
It's easy to believe he didn't because he's sleeping peacefully on his belly. Mandy says he could suffocate that way, so she rolls him over onto his back. And then we see that the baby is cradling a doll head that's been ripped off its body. This upsets Lucy a lot. So Mandy drags her off for another drink, leaving the baby alone with whatever had wrecked the room. They're not too interested in what did cause that.
No, they don't believe it's the baby, but something did it, so it just does not warrant further investigation.
Nope, just leave your newborn there all by himself.
So back downstairs with their second drinks in hand, Mandy says it's hard to believe he's so big and strong. And Lucy says he frightens me.
Yep, Lucy gets all her grievances out here. The baby hates her. It's been a nightmare having him home for all of, 20 minutes? Mandy thinks that Lucy needs to get a grip on herself, but Lucy's having a flashback right now, and she's narrating it.
She's reminiscing about her last night at the club, the night before they took the act to Italy. And that's where she met Gino.
She's doing an act that seems to be sort of like Esmeralda and Quasimodo from the Disney movie, but I don't know, less weird. She's dancing with Hercules the dwarf. She's dressed up like a gypsy. She said she was enjoying doing this act, which looks really silly and not very exciting at all to me, because she thought it was the last time she ever would have to.
After performance, she goes back to her dressing room and she remembers that she was in a hurry to get away because she was leaving for Italy the next day. And Hercules comes into her dressing room.
Uninvited, I might add.
She assumed he wanted to talk, so she let him stay. And there doesn't seem to be much conversation. He puts his hands on her neck.
Ostensibly to give her a back rub?
And then to her breasts.
She's not too thrilled about that. She screams, and then Tommy comes running. He sends Hercules away, as she says, like a beaten animal. And then Tommy comforts her the only way he knows how, with sex. Now that Lucy is sufficiently comforted, she and Tommy get dressed and leave.
She tells Mandy that she was excited to be going to Italy, and Tommy helped make it possible. But afterwards, she couldn't help but feel guilty about what happened with Hercules.
Tommy goes to get the car, and Lucy plans to meet him around front. She's sort of daydreaming as she walks through the club. She's all alone, and it's kind of dark. But there is someone else there.
Hercules jumps out of nowhere and curses her.
You will have a baby, a monster, an evil monster conceived in your womb, as big as I am small and possessed by the devil himself.
Apropos of nothing. And this scene ends with a close-up on Sister Albana's crucifix. And we're back in the present time. She and Gino are at Gino's house now. They look pretty cozy together. But then there's another scream.
And the sound of breaking glass.
It's coming from upstairs, of course. They run up there and see Lucy kneeling on the floor next to a shattered baby bottle. He spat at me. He hates me. He really hates me, she says.
Gino takes Lucy to another room to calm her down, leaving Sister Albana alone with Nicholas. She looks down upon him and he just starts screaming with a very calm look on his face.
She does the sign of the cross over his crib, and he makes a sort of sizzling noise because of this. This makes her a little suspicious. She goes to Gino and Lucy's room. Lucy's very glad to see her. They're apparently good friends. Lucy invites Albana to stay with them, but Albana refuses. She's got a place at St. Teresa's nearby. It's a medical facility, and she can do her research there. She does promise to visit every day, though.
So now it's little Nicky's christening day. Gino and Lucy and little Nicky go into the church. The preacher asks if he could take the baby now, and he takes the baby and his little holy book, and the baby starts to struggle.
Or so we hear. We can't see anything. We see the shot from the priest's elbow region. We don't see the baby at all, but he seems to be having some sort of difficulty. He's struggling with his prayer book, Bible, and the baby's doing something to him we can't see.
Lucy's trying to calm him down. She's saying, Nicky, Nicky, but this kid doesn't listen to his mother.
Nope. He's making an ungodly racket. It sounds like cats fighting in there. When Lucy cannot help, she calls Gino to come over. Sister Albana tells him, quickly, get him out of here. Get him to a hospital. So Gino grabs the baby and they beat it out of the church, leaving the confused clergy and guests behind.
So at the hospital, we see Dr. Finch again, and he's examining little Nicky.
You're going to keep calling him that, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. He says he has to calm down the mother, so he asks the nurse to wait a few minutes before bringing Nicholas in.
It looks like Lucy's pretty calm, though, when we rejoin her and Gino.
Well, not compared to Donald Pleasence. Donald Pleasence is like the calmest person in the history of the world. Nothing phases him. He was in Halloween, and Michael Myers is running around, and he was only a little upset about it. He was pretty calm.
He's mastered the art of calmness.
So, from his point of view, you can see why he would think that Lucy was in hysterics.
I'm sure he's dealt with a lot of mothers with postpartum distress, depression even. He tells the couple that he examined Nicholas thoroughly, and he can find nothing wrong with the baby. But they do have to wait for the blood and urine tests that they did. He does say that Nicholas is extraordinarily well developed and strong for his age. They had to sedate him to take the blood, and the normal dosage of sedative would not suffice for the baby.
In covering all his bases, Dr. Finch asks if there is a history of epilepsy in either of the families. There doesn't seem to be, which makes sense because epilepsy wouldn't even be showing itself for a few years if that was the cause.
However, this is no normal baby, as we're finding out.
Okay, stop. What is abnormal about this baby? He needs to have his fingernails trimmed.
I always hated doing that with my kids. No, there's literally nothing wrong with this baby. We just have to take everyone's word for it. It's a very unfortunate example of telling and not showing, and that will not change for the rest of the movie. Lucy is going on about how he's grown so much, and again, we don't see any difference. As far as we know, he just came home yesterday, and he looks exactly the same. But Dr. Finch says that growth spurts vary in children, so it could be perfectly normal.
The phone rings, the test results are in, and the blood and urine tests were negative. Now Lucy is hysterical.
She says, what do you mean there's nothing wrong? What about the violence? Dr. Finch says it's not that nothing is wrong. He says it's just nothing that he can detect. He says that his next move is to investigate for any congenital conditions the baby might have inherited. And Lucy wants to know, does that mean there's something wrong with our families, with Gino's family, or with mine? She seems awful worried about this.
Dr. Finch is going to recommend a sedative to be used sparingly. But from my perspective, I think that Lucy is probably the one who needs the sedative.
As do we. We have to watch her. The nurse brings back the baby. I guess he didn't mess with her. Dr. Finch tells the nurse to take Lucy and give her the sedative and the dosage. And Dr. Finch uses this time to ask Gino if Lucy might be exaggerating a little bit. Gino says he wasn't there for some of the incidents, so he doesn't know. Dr. Finch says that some women have a hard time after the birth of their babies. If it's postnatal depression that's causing these incidents in Lucy's head, she might need to see someone else, like a psychiatrist.
This is another scene where Ralph Bates as Gino remembers he's supposed to be Italian and does his accent with a little more aggression than in other scenes.
Gino wants the doctor to take the baby back into the hospital, but Dr. Finch says the baby should be with the mother. And then Gino tries to fob off both Lucy and Nicky by sticking them both in the hospital. But Dr. Finch says he means that they should get a full-time nurse until they can discover what's really going on here.
And apparently that is what they've done, because next time we see Lucy, she's going out for the first time since the baby was born, and Jill Fletcher is the nurse who will be staying with the baby.
Lucy's showing Jill where the extra sheets are and anything else that she's going to need for the baby. She's dressed up in an extra fancy turban, so we know she's going out. Indeed, she's very excited to have a night out with the husband. And Jill, the nurse, says, have fun. She'll take care of everything there. Once Lucy and Gino have left, though, Jill goes in to check on the baby. She shushes him rather severely and tells him sternly to go to sleep, leaving him, again, alone.
So Gino and Lucy have gone out to dinner at a pretty fancy restaurant. But Lucy can only talk about the baby, and she's concerned about what Dr. Finch said about checking into their family's medical histories.
Gino reassures her that their families are both fine. There's nothing to worry about. And they go have their dinner. When they return home, it seems like nothing's amiss when they enter.
Lucy notes that it's quiet.
Too quiet. Gino asks if she would like a night hat, and Lucy laughs at him, saying, "Nightcap, you mean?"
Those wild, weird, wonderful Italians.
They start to kiss, and of course, at this moment, we hear a scream, and so do they.
Jill was giving Nicholas a bath, and he was trying to drown her. He grabbed her by the hair and pulled her head into the water, and she says that she couldn't lift her head out of the water and didn't understand why.
However, once Gino and Lucy are there, he lets go. Lucy takes the baby, wraps him up in a towel. Gino gives Jill a towel. Lucy rather nastily asks why she's giving the baby a bath at this time of night. And Jill says that he had dirtied himself, and the easiest thing was just to give him a bath to clean him up.
So Lucy takes little Nicky back to his crib. She lays him down, says she's going to get him some nice clean clothes, and then screams when the baby's face apparently morphs into that of Hercules.
Is she hallucinating? Is Hercules really there? I don't think even she knows.
I use the term morphs very loosely.
Yeah. 1 second we see the baby, and then the next second we see Hercules, and it flashes between the two. Now it's the next day. Jill is taking Nicky for a walk in the baby buggy. She promises to be back in about an hour.
Unless it starts to rain, and then she'll have to come back sooner.
Right. As she's leaving, we see Mandy coming up towards the house on the sidewalk.
Lucy had invited her over because she wanted to speak with her about something. Lucy tells Mandy that she believes Nicholas is possessed by the devil, and she's concerned about these genetic tests she's supposed to have. But she wants to talk to Tommy about it first. Why do you suppose that is?
Fairly obvious, but she's going to tell us anyways. She had a fling the night before she married Gino, and Nicholas was born 9 months later. She needs to talk to Tommy, so she asks Mandy to let him know that they need to get together. She wants Mandy to also fill Tommy in on what's going on, kind of. She doesn't want to have to go through the whole story again.
So we see that Nurse Jill has taken little Nicky to the park. She parks his baby carriage next to a tree by the water, as one does.
She parks the baby carriage right on the edge of the river. There's a river, there's a baby carriage right there. It spells disaster, even in a regular movie or real life. She turns her back on the baby. She's admiring the view. And as she does, one of Nicky's enormous paws smacks her on the back, pushing her into the river. She hits her head on a large rock and goes unconscious, face down in the water.
An older woman is being walked by her dogs, and she seems only a little surprised to find an unattended baby in a carriage. The dogs alert her to Jill's floating body, and the woman screams.
The police and a medical examiner have arrived. They're talking to the assembled people, but those aren't eyewitnesses and they can tell them nothing. They wonder whose baby that is and conclude that the nurse probably fell in accidentally.
Yeah, no one saw what happened, and the woman's dogs are terribly upset.
The movie skips the whole how do we figure out whose baby this is issue, because later with home with Gino, he's eating and Sister Albana comes in. Albana says that Lucy is sleeping. She gave her some pills. And Gino says that when the cops brought Nicky home, Lucy fainted and was out for 2 to 3 minutes.
Sister Albana says that Lucy believes that her baby is possessed by the devil.
Gino is frustrated. How is he supposed to tell anyone, like the doctor, that the baby is possessed by the devil? Albana says that she will tell the doctors. She asks that Gino give her the baby. She'll take him to the hospital for observation. And she suggests that Gino take Lucy to Italy for a little vacation.
Gino thinks this is a great idea because he doesn't know how to take care of a regular baby, let alone a possessed one.
This is a fun conversation because they seem determined to work their Italian accents out on the word bebe. The baby is so big and strong.
Lucy does not think it was an accident.
I know.
She told me what happened with the nurse in the bath last night.
Sometimes I think this baby is sending us mad. Both of us. I mean, how could he? I know he's big and strong, but he's a baby. A baby!
Lucy believes he is possessed.
Possessed?
Yes. By the devil.
Sister Albana asked Gino when was the last time he played.
That took my mind to a different place entirely.
And so they kneel together and start to pray.
It's some sort of Latinate gibberish. and this causes the baby to shriek. Anything Catholic that happens in this house, the baby does not like it.
Now it's daytime, and Mrs. Hyde, remember her? She's speaking to a man who's cleaning out a drain in the patio. He pulls out a dead mouse. Mrs. Hyde despises mice and tells him to throw it in the dustbin.
She's also watching Nicky at this point. He's asleep in his carriage, probably sedated. And she leaves him out there alone with the drain guy as she goes in to make tea. She meets up with Lucy, who's on her way out, though she promises to be back in an hour, which Mrs. Hyde insists on. She has to leave herself. She does note that the baby is sedated, but Mrs. Hyde said that the sedatives are about as much good as water. Lucy leaves anyway, though.
She says she's only going out for an hour or so, and Nicholas should be quiet for that amount of time.
And even if he's not, it's only an hour.
And Mrs. Hyde just grumbles under her breath, "Yes, we hope so."
Not a big fan of Nicky.
She goes back outside, and the man yells that he's finished, and she scolds him for yelling because she certainly doesn't want to wake up this monstrous child.
He takes off, and she absentmindedly stirs her tea, but she noticed there's a little something extra in that cup.
She scoops out a dead mouse and screams. And little Nicky just feigns a look of innocence.
So she woke the baby. Now we're with Lucy. She has taken a taxi to the club. As she gets out of her cab, she sees Hercules. So she ducks out of the way, hiding in an alley until he's passed.
Then she goes in to see Tommy. Tommy is auditioning dancers, but he isn't paying them much attention. He seems much more happy to see Lucy.
He's so happy to see her that he totally ignores the stripper dancing for him. He asks Lucy if she wants to come back to work for him, and of course she says no. He asks her to wait as he does 2 more auditions, and then he'll come over to her place for a drink. And weirdly, she agrees to that. The auditioning dancer, now completely topless, asks, "Am I boring you?" Tommy tells her to continue, grumbling that she's being temperamental, and she's just not the right type for their clientele, which includes Randy Sheiks on a night out.
So now over at St. George's Hospital, Sister Albana is paying a visit to Dr. Finch. And she's questioning the doctor's lack of diagnoses in this case.
Dr. Finch says that Gino told him that Albana has a medical background. Albana says she works in animal pathology, which doesn't really have a lot of overlap with pediatric medicine. They talk about the examination of the baby. Albana asks if it was just a physical exam, and Dr. Finch says he knows of no other way to examine a child. He's too young for any meaningful attempts at psychology.
And Sister Albana asks if it's possible for a baby not to want to be born.
Dr. Finch vaguely recollects hearing that phrase, totally forgetting that he was the one that said it during the birth.
Albana tells him that Lucy believes that this child is possessed by the devil.
The devil.
And Finch says that the existence of a devil doesn't come up much in medicine.
Rarely been a medical diagnosis. He'll leave that to her. It's not really his area of expertise. He asks Albana if she believes in the devil. Albana says she doesn't believe in the little red guy with horns and a pitchfork, but she does believe in evil. And Dr. Finch says he can't diagnose that either.
She asks if the violence that Nicky has been showing could be for revenge.
Revenge for being born.
This whole conversation just feels a little backwards to me because usually it's the people trying to convince the church that the kid is possessed instead of the other way around.
Dr. Finch says he can't write a prescription against evil. That's really her gig. After all, she works for an institution that practices exorcism. Dr. Finch says the baby should stay on sedation for now. Albana offers to stay with the baby at the hospital if they'll admit him for observation.
And Finch asks if the parents would agree to Nicholas being admitted. And Albana tells him that her brother is planning to take Lucy away to rest.
And Dr. Finch thinks that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, it might even be better than a psychologist.
It would be for me. I'd rather go to Italy than go see a shrink.
So Dr. Finch tells Albana that she would make a very good doctor. And she tells him that he would make a terrible nun.
Gino gets a call in his office. I'm guessing it's Albana. Doesn't really say. He finds out that the doctor has okayed his scheme, and he orders Sheila to book his trip to Rome. Now we get to see where Sister Albana works. It's a laboratory. She's playing with some white mice. There's also a library. There's a bunch of books on a shelf in there. She grabs one in particular, starts to read it. Another sister walks in and startles her. There was something in that book that interested her, but she didn't want to be seen reading it, I believe.
Lucy's meeting with Tommy is still going on. They've changed locales. They're now having drinks by a pool.
Tommy offers to cheer her up with the 6 new Irish jokes he's learned, but he's not interested.
She wants to talk about her baby. She tells him that the baby frightens her. Does he look like Gino? He asks.
He cracks jokes about Gino maybe being in the mafia, too. She mentions the genetic test, and thick Tommy has to have it explained that since he just might be the father, this actually involves him, too. He gets offended, like she's trying to blame her weirdo baby on his bloodline. He doubts the kid is his.
And he doesn't know what he's supposed to do about it anyway if it is. He says maybe he should fire Hercules and book her freak kid in the show instead. At this, she slaps him and storms out.
But he runs after her and catches up to her in the parking lot.
He says that she's got him curious, and he wants to see the spooky baby of hers, and if it looks at him and says, Daddy, then okay, it's his.
They drive over to Lucy's house. Mrs. Hyde is impatiently waiting to leave. She snaps at Lucy that she put the baby in his cot.
And hopefully he's asleep.
He's always laying down somewhere.
So Lucy and Tommy go up to see Nicholas. Lucy's preparing a bottle, and Tommy bends down to get a better look at this freak kid. And while we're looking at Lucy, the baby does this thing that he only does when nobody's looking.
He bloodies Tommy's nose. At this, Tommy has had enough, and he takes off.
Lucy looks down at her baby, but apparently she can only see Hercules.
I thought it would be a better plot twist if she had slept with Hercules at this point. It would make a lot more sense. Gino's shopping. He brings a bag of something, I don't know what, home from the store. And we see Lucy actually caring for the baby. Maybe for the first time in this whole movie.
Yeah, Gino announces that he's going to be taking Lucy on holiday. And Lucy says that she can't go. She's got the baby to take care of.
So they leave the baby alone in his crib. And they go to have the little date night in the house. They're dancing in the living room. She somehow changed her clothes into something fancier. Giant gold gong around her neck.
They make their way up to the bedroom.
Drunkenly, babbling all the way. They think about checking in on the baby, but then they opt not to. They just go straight to their room to do it. It's probably the first time since the baby was born, too.
While they're serenaded by the sounds of an off-screen saxophonist.
Their lovemaking really pads out the film. It takes a while. Later on, they're asleep until the baby wakes up Gino. So he puts on some clothes and goes to check on the baby.
He goes into little Nicky's room and finds that little Nicky is not in his crib.
Well, we don't see him. There's something in the crib, a blanket, a lump, I don't know. But the baby's window has been broken and the room, once again, has been messed up.
Gino looks out the window and we hear Muttley laughing outside.
It's a weird, it's a strange laugh. He gets on a bathrobe, grabs a flashlight, and goes outside to investigate. And he hears the laugh again. Great impression, Jeff. He hears a noise and looks up, and then he gets snared by a noose which was dangling from the tree, and then he is hanged by the neck until he is dead. Then he's dropped to the pavement, and something drags him into that open drain that we had seen earlier. Then all the lights in the house go out, even little Nicky's.
We don't know how much time has passed, but Lucy awakens and she can't find Gino. She calls out, but there's no answer. She checks Nicky's room and he's sound asleep. The room is still a mess.
She starts to get a little upset. She runs downstairs and screaming for Gino.
Still no answer. She checks outside and she doesn't see him there either.
She looks up to see the broken window of Nicky's room, but she walks right past that open drain and sees nothing.
So she calls Gino's office. There's no answer there either. So then she calls Mandy and asks her to come over.
Mandy's a little busy, though.
She's in bed with Tommy, and she says sure, she'll swing by later.
If she can.
So Lucy's going to head out and look for Gino.
She's going to the convent. Maybe Gino went to see his sister, Albana.
She tells Mrs. Hyde that she has cleaned up the nursery, and Mrs. Hyde asks how can that little kid be that destructive?
Lucy says that the doctor is going to come to examine him and take him to the hospital for observation. Mrs. Hyde said that she doesn't like talking around the baby, even when he's asleep.
Lucy tells her that if Gino does happen to come back, to tell him that she'll be back later.
Lucy goes to the convent. She goes into the laboratory with all the white mice. Albana finds her and asks her what's wrong. Lucy tells Albana that Gino disappeared, and there were signs of a struggle in the baby's room.
Albana offers to go home with Lucy, but Lucy says that she's not going home right now. She gives Albana the keys so she can let herself in. And Lucy says that she can't wait at home because she'll just go mad. So she's got to keep looking for Gino.
And she's going to go to his office and look there. But if Sister Albana goes home, then Mrs. Hyde can leave.
Speaking of Mrs. Hyde, she comes out of the house to see that Nicky has thrown his blankets and all of his toys on the ground. That little monster. As she picks up the toys, we see that the grate that was covering that drain is now back in place.
Mrs. Hyde says that she hopes she's not going to be around when the baby gets bigger. And boy, is she going to get her wish.
Lucy's going into Gino's office to check in with Sheila and see if she had any idea where he might be. But she says that Gino had no appointments in the books, so she doesn't know either.
Yeah, he's supposed to be going to Italy.
Lucy gives Mrs. Hyde a call to check in, but there have been no calls and there is no news to report.
And the next time we see Lucy, she's making her way to the police station. And then Albana goes to Lucy's house. She lets herself in and asks Mrs. Hyde about Gino and Nicholas. Mrs. Hyde says that Gino hasn't called and Nicholas is asleep in his cot. Weighs a ton, he does now, she says. And then she leaves. Albana goes upstairs to see the baby. He's wide awake and staring at her. She gets closer to the crib and Nicholas starts crying.
As she bends down toward him, she asks why he hates them and says that they just want to love him. And she warns him she's going to pick him up.
She bends down and the baby shrieks and gouges her cheek. Not that we see it. Later, Lucy has come home. She's dressing Albana's wound. The front bell rings. Lucy thinks that, well, Gino's home, but Albana reminds her that he's got a key. He would just let himself in. Albana goes downstairs, and it's Dr. Finch at the door.
He notices the scratch on her face and asks about it, and she says it's nothing, and tells him that her brother has disappeared.
She wants Dr. Finch to check on Lucy, who's in great distress. So he does. He examines Lucy, and here she begs him to take the baby. She doesn't want to be alone with him. And Dr. Finch says that Sister Albana will come back soon, and they'll collect the baby the next day.
Finch is going to give Lucy a sedative. He's managed to convince her that Gino probably has amnesia, and these things can happen at the times of stress.
This doctor accepts a lot of things that other people might think twice about.
He also likes to give out sedatives.
Well, it was the 70s. Dr. Finch goes to check on the baby, but he's not in his room.
The window's open again.
It's still broken.
Well, they haven't had a chance to fix it.
Yeah, Lucy may have tidied up, but she didn't do any glasswork on the window.
Dr. Finch goes downstairs and outside. And we hear that Muttley laugh again.
He looks around the patio, and he does see something in the drain. There's a bloodied hand sticking out of it. He bends down closer to see what's up with that. And just then, a shovel comes down. It whacks Dr. Finch a couple of times, and it looks like it decapitates him. Did you see that?
What I saw was it went into his head the first time, and then the second time it went like through his neck and decapitated him.
Yeah, the first whack didn't do the job, but the second whack did.
Well, the second time I think it went like right into his head.
Like I thought it was like the back of his head because he's bent down.
Maybe he's bald. I can't tell. It was just skin. And this is the point where Lucy has kind of a hallucinatory dream.
She's pretty hopped up on drugs.
Those sedatives did a number on her.
She dreams that she's in bed with a bloody-nosed but amorous Tommy. She breaks away from him and runs to the baby's room, where the baby isn't, as we have seen a few times. She goes into the bathroom where she sees the drowned Jill. She runs downstairs, opens the door, and standing there is Gino, looking kind of like a zombie, wearing his sister's habit.
There's a ringing sound, and she awakens to find the phone ringing. On the other end of the phone is Mandy checking in.
She apologizes for flaking on her. She's getting ready to go on stage, and we see Hercules there. He kind of pats her on the ass and tells her to get ready to go out there.
She's calling from the club. As she hangs up, Tommy asks her if she's talking to a new boyfriend.
And Mandy says, nope, she's talking to an old girlfriend.
Back at the house, Lucy hears something. Was it Albana? She goes into the nursery. The baby's gone, but she notices that Dr. Finch's bag is sitting there. She looks around for the doctor. She goes outside and hears a voice call, Lucy.
It sounds like Gino. She gets excited, but then there's that manic laugh again.
She runs toward the voice and nearly trips over the grate. The lid is askew again.
She looks up in the tree, but she sees Hercules, and he's holding a knife. She screams and runs into the house, locking the door. She runs up to her room where she tries to call the police, but Hercules is at the door.
He has a very pouty face. She tries to barricade the door with her body.
I'm your mother. You can't hurt me. Please go away. I've never done anything to you. Leave me alone. Don't kill me, please.
Hello, caller. Are you there?
You killed the nurse.
Lucy.
You killed Gino. I know you killed him. But you're not going to kill me.
And then she is stabbed and falls to the floor.
We then see Hercules, who's still at the club. He didn't do it. He's doing his act.
Yeah, it's cabaret night at the strip club.
I think every night is cabaret night at that club. Sister Albana comes to the house and hears the baby screaming like an animal. Or maybe like a severely neglected baby.
She goes to the nursery and he's lying in his crib. So Albana starts speaking in Latin, maybe performing rites of exorcism. Is she allowed to do that?
Not really.
Nicholas puts up a fight. He's screaming and he throws himself from his crib onto the floor. And for a quick moment, he looks a little like Hercules.
And speaking of Hercules, we join him in the club where he's doing his act, but he's starting to falter a bit.
Yeah, the exorcism across town seems to be having an adverse effect on his performance. He falls, and Tommy announces to the crowd to remain calm, but somebody screams that he's dead.
He's not. He's moving still. Then, back in the nursery, Albana presses the crucifix to the baby's forehead, and something drags the baby across the floor. She goes a little heavier on her incantations, and then Hercules is dead for real.
Albana places the baby back into his crib, and the sound of sirens and the police rush to the scene. Did somebody call them?
Lucy did. They must have finally decided to come. I do have that the baby looks completely normal once Hercules dies.
Yeah, so police are going to come in and find all these dead bodies, and Sister Albana's going to have a lot of explaining to do.
Well, she's a nun. She's an unassailable character.
She can't say he did it and point to the baby.
Nobody can say that. We didn't see anything. I couldn't testify to that. I saw nothing. And then the credits roll over the face of the calm but lonely baby Nicholas.
And that's the devil within her.
Welcome back to the American International Podcast, where we are talking about The Devil Within Her from 1975.
Donald Pleasence began filming immediately after arriving back from Hollywood, where he just finished shooting Hearts of the West, which was also released in 1975. He received a special guest star credit in this film.
We don't have a lot of information on this film, but there is a Blu-ray extra featuring an interview with Caroline Munro. We got some information from her about her role in the movie. I noticed pretty much right away that it sounded like her voice had been dubbed, and that was the case. Apparently the producers wanted to hire someone who looked like her, but sounded a little more rough. So they hired Liz Fraser to dub in Mandy's voice.
Caroline Munro thought she had gotten Peter Sasdy's agreement that she would not do a nude scene, but he forgot when it was time to shoot the scene of her in bed with Tommy. She reminded him of his promise, and Sasdy had the wardrobe person affix some pads over Munro's chest, which are easily visible in the scene.
It looks like she's wearing maxi pads instead of a bra. The Carlesi home in this movie was also used in the opening credits of every episode of The Prisoner TV show, which starred Patrick McGoohan.
The movie, which was originally titled I Don't Want to Be Born, was released by AIP in the United States under the title The Devil Within Her. It is also known as The Monster and, for some reason, Sharon's Baby, even though there is no character in the movie with that name. I Don't Want to Be Born was released in the UK in 1975, but in America, The Devil Within Her premiered in Chicago in February of 1976, and then was seen in Los Angeles in March and New York in June.
So it had a lot of openings. Taglines for this movie include a chilling story of a birth that should not have happened.
Not since Rosemary's Baby. ... You got to figure it out for yourself.
An evilness that could only be conceived by the devil.
It's evil. It's horrific. It's conceived by the devil.
Conceived by the devil. Only she knows what her baby really is.
Pray for the devil within her before it preys on you.
Box Office Magazine recommended that theater owners hold special midnight showings and to play a recording of loud moaning and screaming noises in between each show. Guess that would gin up some business?
By April 28, 1976, The Devil Within Her had racked up $751,912 in the United States, ranking in the top 25 most of the weeks it was in theaters.
Yeah, it went up and down because it's not like movies today where they're in all theaters simultaneously. These movies were trucked from city to city, so their box office intake wasn't as easy to gauge.
At first, reviews for the film show it to be a target of critical scorn. Andrew Nichols of Time Out described the film as derivative and disastrous in every respect, a poor idea, an abominable screenplay by Stanley Price. I keep getting these awful premonitions. Ludicrous acting, and worst of all, Sasdy's direction. Almost every foot of film not concerned with the baby is travelogue at its most banal. Extraneous shots of Westminster and Oxford Street, plugs for Fortnum and Mason and Holiday Inns. Completing this sorry tale of ripoff is borrowing from The Exorcist, 1973, and any number of details from Amicus, Hammer, and Swinging London Horrors. Give it a wide berth.
An American viewer found the film sensational and vulgar, and an unholy cross between The Exorcist and Rosemary's Baby, which came out in '68. He added, "Why decent actors like Eileen Atkins and Donald Pleasence allow themselves to be corralled into a mess like this is enigmatic."
Roger Ebert named The Devil Within Her as his dog of March of 1976, drawing the same comparisons to The Exorcist put forth by Nichols, while adding, the kid must have been a sound effects man in a previous incarnation because he makes noises like squad car sirens and stones banging around at empty garbage cans. He's also good at murdering everybody in the family, even the family doctor, who is played by Donald Pleasence, as if he wanted to be somewhere else, and for that matter, so did I.
Box Office, as usual, tried to find the good points for their review. They praised the inclusion of Hercules as the villain in the movie and said that Collins portrays her character's sense of guilt, fear, and confusion quite well. The review also thought that Eileen Atkins was good as Sister Albana and said Peter Sasdy has done a credible job of maintaining the right level of tension throughout.
The film's reputation changed somewhat in the 1980s, where the film supposedly became a regular feature on late-night TV in the UK and US, which attracted fans of the so-bad-it's-good genre of horror films. What critics hated, these new fans appreciated, like the incoherent, implausible plot, overwrought acting, and a general air of absurd hysteria in some scenes, changing to clumsy and stilted dialogue in others, the bizarre accents adopted by Bates and Atkins, the lack of any real action, the unnecessary and long sex scene between Collins and Bates, and the sight of several well-respected actors of the period making fools of themselves.
The cast, of course, appeared in other AIP productions. Joan Collins, who was Lucy Carlesi in this movie, had appeared in AIP's Three in the Cellar from 1970 and would go on to appear in Empire of the Ants in 1977 and The Stud from 1978, distributed by AIP's subsidiary Trans-American Films.
Ralph Bates, who played Gino Carlesi, had appeared in several Hammer films, and among those was Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde in 1971, distributed by American International Pictures.
Donald Pleasence, Dr. Finch, had appeared previously in Circus of Horrors in 1960, Kidnapped in 1971, and Raw Meat in 1972.
Caroline Munro, who played Mandy Gregory, appeared as the uncredited Victoria Regina Phibes in The Abominable Dr. Phibes in 1971, and its sequel, Dr. Phibes Rises Again in 1972. And she also later appeared in At the Earth's Core in 1976, and in Star Crash, which was originally produced by Filmways after the AIP merger, then sold to and distributed by Roger Corman's New World Pictures in 1979.
John Steiner, Tommy Morris, would go on to appear in Salon Kitty, of which an English-dubbed version would be distributed by Trans-American Films in 1977.
Janet Key, who played Jill Fletcher, had appeared in The Vampire Lovers in 1970.
She was Gretchen the maid there.
I remember.
Yeah, we did that episode, so check it out. Stanley Lebor, the police sergeant, had appeared in Hennessy in 1975, and Liz Fraser, Mandy's uncredited voice, also appeared, once again uncredited, in On the Fiddle in 1961. That was later distributed by AIP as Operation Snafu, and that came out in 1965.
Harold Coyne, and the uncredited waiter, had also played an uncredited barman in the Oblong Box in 1969. And Reg Thompson, who was an uncredited christening guest, has made a career of uncredited parts. And among those, he appeared in Circus of Horrors in 1960, Summer Holiday in 1963, Psycho Circus in 1966, The Oblong Box in 1969, Horror House in 1969, and Hennessy in 1975.
So I guess you know his face, but nothing else about him. All right, Jeff, we've heard other people weigh in on The Devil Within Her, a.k.a. I Don't Want to Be Born, also known as The Monster and Sharon's Baby. But what do you think of this film with many titles?
Of the titles, I think the most appropriate is I Don't Want to Be Born. I think the one with the best selling point is The Devil Within Her. The Monster is kind of bland, and Sharon's Baby just doesn't make any sense because there's not a Sharon in it. I still don't understand why that is even an option. One thing we didn't really talk about, except for I did mention the saxophone playing during the love scene, is the score of this movie. It's really kind of unusual. It sounds like somebody was recording it in their basement on a Casio keyboard. There's the scene where Sister Albana is reading the book, and the music's really strong at that point, and it just sounds like somebody banging around on their keyboard, just messing around and making something up. And it's really kind of strange, actually, because it sounds like something you might have heard in a bad movie in the 80s and not a bad movie from the 70s. So I guess maybe it's a little ahead of its time. Ralph Bates' accent is pretty bad, his attempt at doing Italian. It's probably better than Pam Grier's Jamaican accent in Coffee, if I had to compare him, but it's still not good.
No commitment to the bit.
I don't know if Sister Albana's accent is any better, but at least it's consistent. The movie itself is just kind of bizarre. You mentioned how it would have made more sense if Hercules had been the father of the baby, and I would agree. I remember the first time I watched it, that's where I thought it was going, that there was some incident that she had blocked from her memory or something, but no, that's not what happened. He just cursed her, and I don't know if we're supposed to believe that maybe Hercules is the devil himself, and that's why he was affected by the exorcism. And there's so much in this movie that just doesn't make sense. And a big problem with it is that I don't think it successfully conveys what it is it's trying to convey. Having the baby do all the violence off screen, I guess, works because there's no other way for what's happening to be happening, but it's not very satisfying as an audience member to not see anything happening and just to see the people's reactions. And the fact that everybody's going on about how horrible this baby is, and we don't see any evidence of that because we don't see any of this stuff happening. This baby always has an innocent look on its face, and even when it's screaming, making these horrible sounds, his face doesn't look like he's making those sounds. When a baby cries, they turn purple and they squint and all the veins pop out in their heads. And this baby's just sitting there and these sounds are emanating from him. And it would have been nice to see some sort of feats of strength that they keep talking about. I guess grabbing your babysitter by the hair and pulling her head into the bathtub is a show of strength, and then later pushing her into a river. But there just wasn't enough of that to satisfy me, because those were instances that only one person was around to see it happening, but yet everybody is talking about how strong this baby is. And the scenes where he briefly turns into Hercules, I don't know if there was a better way to convey what they were trying to do there. I guess it gets the message out. It just doesn't seem like it's really well done. With all that being said, I would really recommend watching this film. You have to be in the right frame of mind and gather with like-minded friends, have an edible, and just have fun with it. But if you're going to watch this alone, it's mediocre at best. It's worth a watch just to check it off the list, but it's going to get no better than an intermediate score for me. The Devil Within Her is an I movie. What's your opinion, Cheryl?
Very similar to yours. I thought the movie was kind of hokey, and it seems really dated, and it's just not scary at all. A modern movie would scare the viewer by having a CGI baby skittering across the floor or climbing up the walls like a spider before making its kills. And here we just see, like you said, just a simply adorable baby. It's not oversized. It isn't strangely large. We don't see it grow. Just all the claims made by Gino and Lucy, we have no evidence for those. He just sits there kind of calmly regarding his parents. When something happens that the camera doesn't see, they go bananas. But just a scratch here, a bite there. I'm a mom, and my 2 kids have inadvertently bit and scratched me, and many times it happens. That's just not horror. So yeah, most of the murderous stuff happens just out of view of the camera. We never really see the baby attacking. There are, of course, the few times where we see the baby's hand pushing Jill into the water, but the more elaborate kills, like Gino getting noosed on the patio, we don't see any perpetrator there. And I think that was a bad choice. It made the movie really boring and, frankly, kind of silly. But just looking at that baby, since I wasn't scared, the only emotion I could feel was I felt sorry for this poor baby. It's kind of depressing how bad Lucy and Gino are at parenting. Okay, it's a demon baby, but it's still a baby. They should be holding it, cuddling it, giving it affection. Instead, the parents, the nanny, the housekeeper, everyone, they seem to handle the poor baby as little as possible. They just put him in his crib or in his carriage. They drug him when they decide they can't deal with him anymore. Maybe he was only demonic because he was so lonely. I think I'm speaking out on behalf of the baby because I never really considered him to be anything but a baby. This movie never once presented him as anything that we should be frightened of. The filmmakers may have wanted to keep his demonic nature kind of a secret from the characters, at least at first, but they should have let the audience in on the surprise. I can't be scared of him or regard him as evil if those evil deeds don't get any screen time. Nicholas was never presented as a monster in the film. And if it was Hercules who was a real villain, maybe they should have shown him as an actual menacing presence during the movies. Instead, we saw him just for a few seconds, and basically it just seemed like a delusion. I mean, I can think of a better scene just off the top of my head. Lucy opted not to breastfeed, or at least she was told not to. But what if she had breastfed the baby, and then she looked down and we see Hercules at her chest? That would have been kind of scary. And not just a flash, but like he's really there. Instead, Hercules just seems to be innocent after this. We don't even know that Hercules knows Lucy had a baby. So he's not actively cursing the baby. He just yelled at her when his feelings were hurt. Just not great motivation for what happens next. Doesn't explain why the baby's possessed by the devil. The story doesn't hold together. A does not flow to B, does not flow to C. So it makes no sense to me. So yeah, I feel this film is very weak as story goes. There's too many tepid scares. They're presented rather lazily. Can't really take it seriously as a horror movie. And it's bad enough that it is, like people have said, a ripoff of Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist. Those are 2 films that did a much better job of portraying demonic possession, especially The Exorcist, the possession of a child. Rosemary's Baby was much better at building tension, and The Exorcist left nothing to the imagination. We saw how scary demonic possession could look. The Devil Within Her didn't really try for suspense or terror, and I think it ended up being kind of forgettable. I'd already seen it before and basically forgot everything that happened before we watched it a second time. So yeah, I just feel like it's a well-made movie. I mean, it's a competently made movie, but it's just didn't stick the landing. So I give it an I as well. Well, I think that wraps up our discussion of Sharon's Baby. Not Sharon's Baby, The Devil Within Her. Until our next movie, I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And I'm Jeff Markin.
And we'll meet you at the drive-in.
Follow the American International Podcast on Instagram and Letterboxd at AIP_pod and on Facebook at facebook.com/American International Podcast.
The American International Podcast is produced and edited by Jeff Markin.
A man whose mind is distorted by hatred.
And Cheryl Lightfoot.
A girl hungry for too many things.
The American International Podcast is part of the Pop Culture Entertainment Network.